Hello everyone, this is Nevernan, and today I will be doing a video talking about the final full week of MWP7. So, it's 7 weeks. We are currently in semifinals as of the recording of this video, and I will be covering those games as well. But, yes, to finish off the final week, the stats are updated to reflect week 7, and as such, I will take a look at these stats, and we'll do a little bit more. We already did a review of the overall metagame in a previous video with Boom, so go check that out if you want to have a more in-depth discussion, but just to quickly overview stats after week 7's completion, and also with all the stats posted. Let's take a look. So, first of all, the only type that has not been used as of this entire tournament has been Ice. Rock, Psychic, and Grass have all been used, unsuccessfully as you can see, but obviously we'll see what happened in those games to see what happened. I'm very experienced with Psychic as well, so I might be able to give a little bit more insight as to what could have possibly went down. And again, Fairy doing obscenely well in its 18 games with a 72% win rate. Very good compared to Fighting, who has a similar amount of games and 41. Steel, still completely crushing this tournament. Dragon now has a more even 50% win rate. Water picked up a little bit after a little bit of a fall off last week. Dark is still doing fine. Flying is still doing fine. Ground is actually underperforming quite a bit. 35 and 20 games is actually not very good, especially for a type that's as popular as this. I mean, Fairy just has a significantly better win rate than it, and it's only like 2 games less than Ground, so make of that information what you will. But Ghost is also doing fine. Fire, not doing too hot. Bug actually has a decent win rate considering how weak the type is perceived, and unfortunately Electric is still sitting at a 0% win rate. But yeah, that's just the win rates. Let's take a look at the more diverse Pokemon, because Bug obviously is still using the same couple of Pokemon, as those teams have been shown to do a lot of success, and people probably don't want to diverge too much from what's been working on Bug, since Bug is already a very risky type to bring, so trying to be a bit creative with a type like this is very, very risky, so understandably this doesn't have a lot of variety. But with Fire, Fire still has the same 6 bonds with the bonus Torkoal that may or may not show up sometimes. But yeah, Fire is still doing the same thing as usual. Flying, most used bond is Corviknight, which isn't super shocking. Gliscor is actually not the most used Pokemon, which that might be slightly shocking to some people, but Corviknight's overall impact on every single type of archetype of flying cannot be understated on how good this Pokemon is. So this doesn't surprise me, but it may surprise some of you, because this Mon truly is a really good Pokemon on flying. Now, Gliscor obviously has the better win rate than Corviknight, but Corviknight, the way Corviknight fits onto teams is just, it's irreplaceable, I would say. Or maybe not irreplaceable, but definitely way too valuable, because it just does way too much, and also has a wide variety of sets that it can run as well. It's a very big Swiss Army knife. Kind of like Gliscor, but the Steel Flying typing is definitely a lot more handy, especially when dealing with Bolt Beamers, or any other type of massive threat, like Latios, or Latios, or any type of Dragon Spammer, any type of Steel Spammer as well. It just Steel's typing in general is just way too good to give up, so that's part of the reason why Corviknight is as popular as it is. But let's move on to the other mods. We still haven't seen Moltres Galar since the first couple of weeks, which I'm very sad about, but I think it's because people aren't willing to bring flying, especially what happened with infamously with RoyalReloaded and Froll, so we're a little bit hesitant to bring flying, maybe for that reason. Flying is still a very solid type, but some people may not want to play 500 turn games, so that could very possibly be a thing. But also very likely that it's not a thing, and I'm just making that up. Still, the mods on flying that are being used, there's still a lot of variety. As you can see, something we've been seeing on Dragon Knight is a lot more fat sets with Dragon Tail and Thunderwave. We also saw Zapdos Galar last week, and just in general, there's not really a ton I can say about the type. When we were doing our initial predictions, like nearly 2 months ago, I was told that Enamorus would be very popular, and Enamorus does seem to be doing pretty decently. It does have a 50% win rate, which is higher than most of the mods on this list, so obviously it's more popular than both Landos, so that's actually pretty impressive. So I would say that Enamorus definitely was a bit of a popular mon, but I think the fatter archetypes of flying were still the most popular, even with the metagame developments. But yeah, let's move on to water. Water, still one of the most diverse types in the entire tournament. Fusien, Samurott, and Toxapex still not completely dominating. Alomomola not too far behind, but everything else is just super low win rate, or not super low win rate, super low usage rate. The exception of Urshifu. Now, I'm not sure why they're separated, but I'm sure that's gonna get fixed later. But yeah, we talked a lot about all these here, but I just wanted to do a quick check up on them to see what happened in Week 7. Steel, not much has changed here. Still Heatran 100%, Goldingo 100%. Iron Treads, massive presence, as well as Arcaludon. But yeah, not too much to speak on, because we explained in the previous video, once again, why Steel is the way it is. So, without further ado, let's just go right into the games. So, also, we are one game short this week because for some reason one of the games wasn't played. I'm not sure what that was about, but it's alright. But Roll 1 versus Memphis is going to be our first game, and it is Psychic versus Dark. Very unfortunate matchup for Psychic to run into. And Roll 1 is opting for a Uxie team, interestingly enough, with Slowking and Metagross. So, Metagross Slowking is actually not a bad core, because Metagross does set Stealth Rocks, and Slowking is a very good regenerator pivot, and works well with what I assume is going to be a physically defensive Hatterene set. And Meloetta is here for the Ghost Spam, as well as most likely Assault Vest to go down. But with Dark, that doesn't matter because obviously Meowscarada is just going to completely destroy this entire type. But we'll see how this gets played and see what the actual sets for what are. Because Hatterene can do a lot versus Dark, but especially at this high of a level, I think the Dark user is definitely not going to allow Hatterene to do the things that it wants to do. So let's take a look at what happens here. So, see the lead, Uxie immediately getting knocked off and one-hit KO'd by the Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon just kind of unstoppable in that spot. We see the Calm Mind get used, and the Psychic Noise does come out from Hoopa. The Psychic Noise actually will prevent Hatterene from being able to use its Draining Kiss. Actually, no, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. Forget what I said, but it would have stopped Hatterene from being able to heal. So it would still use the Draining Kiss, but it wouldn't be able to heal. Or would it actually stop healing? Oh, never mind. I was right though. Yeah, Hatterene wouldn't be able to use Draining Kiss because it would heal it, so here comes the Draining Kiss. Like before, Psychic Noise going to stop him from using the Draining Kiss, so now it's stuck using Calm Mind. Alright, the Draining Kiss comes out again, healing it for quite a bit. Now Psychic Noise comes out again, blocking the usage of that move. Knockoff comes out, Trick Room ends, Psychic Noise is used again. Knockoff will actually potentially KO Hatteran here. Yep, and the Trick Room is still up, so maybe Meloetta is able to do something. Nope, Hoopa is still slower than Meloetta, so Meloetta does use the U-turn to finish off Hoopa though. Meloetta was Assault Fest, which isn't super shocking. Slowking comes out, Slowking using Scald on the Tinglu. Tinglu getting those rocks up, but... And also that's another weakness of Psychic. Once Hatteran goes down, you have nothing to deal with hazards, and hazards are very easy to set up on this type, especially with the amount of pressure Hatteran goes through. As we do see the taunt come out on the onto the Slowking from Memphis. Spikes are stacked up. Spikes likely just preventing Meloetta from being able to come in. And yes, the Roaring Moon does come out and hit KO the Slowking. Hoopa unable to get that Focus Blast off. He actually opted for Choice Scarf Hoopa instead of Assault Vest, which definitely is something that you can use. But yeah, this is definitely a brutal matchup, and Memphis also brought Roaring Moon. I probably should have mentioned that, but Roaring Moon also is a massive threat to this type, because typically Roaring Moons are Choice Scarf, so it's actually very shocking that Frollo was actually able to outspeed this Roaring Moon, specifically, unless, nope, the item wasn't revealed, so maybe it was Dragon Dance instead, it has some sort of item, I'm not too sure, but regardless, Roaring Moon still just clicks knockoff on anything on this type, and it just kind of destroys them, because Psychic doesn't really have that many good physical answers into Dark spam, and Dark, as you know, is one of the most spammable types in the metagame, not just in Monotype, but just in Pokemon in general, so not having something to deal with that is definitely going to be brutal for a Psychic team. The way most people usually get around it is physically defensive Hatteran, since, as you know, Hatteran is a Psychic Fairy type, which means that it's neutral to knockoff, and also can threaten Roaring Moon, and as you saw, he was able to, the Hatteran in this game was able to do a lot, but unfortunately, the Psychic Noise Hoopa Unbound really messed this team up, because otherwise, I actually think Fro would have probably won this with the, with enough Calm Mind boosts and healing from Draining Kiss. If Hoopa Unbound didn't have Psychic Noise, I believe Froll actually did have a very big chance of winning this game. Because of how physically defensive Hatteran is and the amount of healing he would have gotten from Draining Kiss, it would have been a lot harder for Memphis to deal with this team, but fortunately he did have Psychic Noise, so sadly that would not come to pass. But if Memphis had brought, let's say, Darkrai instead of Hoopa, very, very possible that Hatteran could have won this game. Because even with Sludge Bomb, Darkrai would have been outsped in Trick Room, and would have taken a lot of damage from Calm Mind boosted Draining Kisses. So yeah, this was an unfortunate showing for Psychic, but I do think that this team was capable of bringing home the win. It is just unfortunate that Memphis had a lot of ways to deal with Psychic on his team. And that's just kind of the main reason why Psychic isn't brought a lot, is because a lot of the metagame trends are just very opposed to Psychic as a whole. It goes to Dark Spam, the amount of knockoffs and U-turns that are thrown around, like it's not very helpful for Psychic to just have to deal with all of that as a main weakness to the type, along with it just being a common thing in general. And let's not even start talking about Hisuian and Samurai on both Water and Dark, just completely messing up this type. And also setting spikes in the face of Hatteran as well, on a type that's already weak to Hazard Stack. Yeah, this was an uphill battle, but I do think that this team could have done it if Memphis did not have Psychic Noise. But hey, we live and we learn, and it was nice to see a Psychic team at least brought. And it was a bad showing, because of the bad matchup, but I do think that the second team brought was good. So let's move on to the next match. We got Sificon versus Mind Gaming with a water versus bug matchup. We have the usual bug team that we've been seeing this tournament with a somewhat stall-ish bulky offense. I think it might actually be stall with Xiri and Samurai, as me and Boop were discussing in the previous video. But yeah, this should be an interesting match because Volcarona, typically, I don't think even on bug it uses Giga Drain anymore. So it may be tougher for this Volcarona to break through Gastrodon, as well as the other couple of mons, but maybe it does have Giga Drain in this game. We'll see. But yes, Alomomola will be led, and Cleavor will set those rocks up immediately. The Skull coming out, not burning, thankfully for Mind Gaming. We see the Skull come out onto the Volcarona, but Volcarona is easily able to take that. Will-O-Wisp is put onto the Alomomola, weakening its flip turn, significantly reducing the amount of damage that Volcarona would have taken from that. Volcarona now not doing Will-O-Wisp on the Empoleon, getting that thing burned down. Flamethrower is used, and Surf does KO the Volcarona. So Volcarona is gone for this match. Most likely, it probably wasn't able to do much because it didn't have Giga Drain. So we do see the Will-O-Wisp come on to the Tuxpex. That's 3 mons burned on the side of Sificon. Araquanid now comes out on the side of Mind Gaming. Alomomola does use Flip Turn. As we see the Surf come out. Ooh, Surf doing a lot there. I think this might be a Choice Spec set on the Araquanid, because I don't think it's, even with Water Bubble, I don't think it's hitting that hard, typically. But we do see Slitherwing come out and take the knockoff as the close combat comes out, but Toxpex is able to blank it really well. Now see Caesar come out on the side of Mind Gaming, blocking the Toxic. As Alomomola does come back out, Caesar clicking a Sword Stance. Does he have Trailblaze? It does, and Alomomola will take a lot as a result. Alomomola fishing for the burn. The burn does not come out critically, but Mind Gaming still swapping out. As the Dondozo does lose its heavy duty boots, Body Press comes out on the side of Sificon as Low Kicks proceeds to leech life. Curse does come out on the side of Dondozo, and Dondozo might start doing its thing. As we do see Slitherwing come out. The Will-O-Wisp coming out. Avalanche coming out on the side of Dondozo, interestingly enough. The burn will make Dondozo a bit weaker, but Dondozo typically runs Rest, so yes, Rest will come out, and it will no longer be burned or weakened. Here comes Gastrodon. Gastrodon no longer having Storm Drain, as most of the ones on water do typically run Sticky Hold. The Trailblaze coming out on Caesar, completely knocking out Gastrodon. Normally that would be a big KO, but Bug does not have an electric type that it can really use to take advantage of this advantage, so Caesar will keep using Trailblaze. It seems that this is a Sleep Talkless Dondozo, so Trailblaze will keep getting used as the rest does come out again. We're gonna keep seeing Trailblazes get used by Mind Gaming. Seems like Mind Gaming may be going for a critical hit on the Trailblaze, as Dondozo is somewhat forced to keep okay, it was actually able to get a curse up this time, but it is going to be forced to rest multiple times. It doesn't seem like Mind Gaming has a way to break through this Dondozo though, as Dondozo is able to not get 3-hit or 4-hit KO'd by any of its mons, especially not after this curse boost. And yeah, it looks like it may be GG's here, since yeah, Body Press does come out. Araquanid using option to use Rest here. But it's not Choice Spec, so it actually was able to do that much damage to Xiri and Samurai just by itself. That's crazy. But you see Sleep Talk come out. Sleep Talk, we see the stockpile. Yes, this is the stockpile set that we've seen before. We do see Arachnid get swapped out for Cleavor. Cleavor getting its Choice Scarf knocked off. Toxapex comes out. See the close combat, but the close combat does not do any damage to the Toxapex. U-turn is used, but sadly that'll be the last time we see Cleavor get used this game, as they do not have the hazard removal to allow Cleavor to come back onto the field. So Dondozo comes back out, as we do keep seeing the Trailblazers get used by the Scizor. Dondozo waking up and cursing. Now will they get critical hit here? They do not, 17%, so Dondozo gets the fully heal. Dondozo having 3 uses of rest left, but it is unlikely that it will get forced out in its current state. Scizor does keep trying to weaken the Dondozo. Dondozo opting for body press on the Arachnid. Arachnid on its wake up turn here, so we may be seeing a Rust come out. Oh, we see the Surf instead, as Empoleon does take a ton of damage. The Roost coming through on Empoleon as it heals itself to a relatively healthy amount. We see low kicks come out and knock off the Toxapex Heavy Duty Boots. Very important knockoff, I will say. As Scizor comes back out and eats the Toxic once again. Scizor actually being a massive threat to this team with its Trailblaze and Sword Stance combo. Dondozo is basically forced to constantly come in to deal with it. And it is slowly running out of rest. The Scald... the Scald getting the burn off. A Lummomola does fall, but with the burn, Scizor is not going to be able to break through this Dondozo at all. So now it is up to Arachnid to try and finish this team off, as it is significantly weakened. Empoleon taking a bit of damage from the Surf, as it is a critical hit. You see low kicks come out again with the Sword Stance. Leech Life probably going to get used here. Nope. Instead, he swaps into Arachnid instead of Scizor, and Arachnid does take the Toxic, but it does have Rest, so it may be fine. Yes, we see the Rest come out and remove that Toxic Poison. Empoleon taking a little bit of chip damage, as the knockoff brutally coming onto the Scizor and removing its Heavy Duty Boots. Scizor is going to find it very hard to come in to the match this time around, as Scizor does try to use the close combat onto Empoleon, but it gets blocked by Toxapex. Toxapex using Haze, as Arachnid burns a Sleep Turn using Sleep Talk. Fortunately, does not get anything useful. Cleavor comes out. Empoleon uses Roost on Cleavor's self KO, as we see low kicks come out. Here comes a Leech Life, doing a good 22% to the Toxapex, as we see Arachnid come out to block the Toxic. Here comes Empoleon, as we see a Sleep Talk from Mind Gaming. A 15% to the Empoleon, as we see Scizor come out again, but fortunately Scizor, no longer having this Heavy Duty Boots, is unable to take the hazard chip damage as well as the knockoff chip damage. So, you see low kicks. See a double from low kicks into Arachnid to bait out the Toxapex. Empoleon coming out again, as we do see the Surf. Surf still doing a decent amount of damage, but now Arachnid, it loses its Heavy Duty Boots. Empoleon roosts itself to a relatively more healthy HP, but is still getting slowly whittled down by the Arachnid. You see the stockpile come through. Stockpile allowing Arachnid to start stacking those defensive boosts, but Empoleon whipping out the Roar to prevent it from becoming a stall threat, as we do see low kicks try to get a Leech Life onto the Toxapex, but Toxapex not taking that much damage. Arachnid still able to rest off this Toxic Poison, Toxapex still has a good amount of recovery uses left, as it has been spamming its regenerator this entire match. Surf is used onto the Empoleon, but Empoleon is able to roost it off. Rackfooted going to opt for a Sleep Talk, and Sleep Talk will bring out the Surf, but as you know, it does very little damage. Surf doing a crit onto the Empoleon. Sure, Mind Gaming wishing those crits came through on the Caesar before, but fortunately now is when they come. Leech Life doing a decent amount of chip damage to the Toxapex. Mind Gaming still refusing to let his low kicks get toxic, as he does switch into the Araquanid again. Rest comes through on the side of Mind Gaming as Empoleon does come out. Empoleon using one of its roost usage again. It has one roost usage left, so if Araquanid may be able to actually stall out the Empoleon here. As you do see the Surf come out. Roar on Empoleon does come out again as Low Kicks comes out. Low Kick's going to opt for Leech Life most likely. Yes, Leech Life does come out, putting a Toxapex at a uncomfortable HP, as Araquanid comes out again to block the Toxic. Sificon very adamant on using Toxic, but Sificon knows the importance of landing that Toxic onto the Low Kicks, as Low Kicks is the only thing with heavy duty boots left, and if it gets weakened in any sort of way, it will be significantly easier to take down, as Toxapex does get the Toxic onto the Araquanid, but Araquanid will likely rest it off, as Empoleon is looking to roar out the Araquanid, but instead that does not occur, and Araquanid is able to get a Sleep Talk off. Now, it has limited uses of Sleep Talk left, so Mind Gaming might need to be careful here, as the stockpile does come through, or not the stockpile, the haze comes through. You see one recovery usage from Toxapex get used, as the Surfs keep coming out. Toxic is used again, as Mind Gaming likely going to... Nope, instead of resting, he ups for another Surf. Another recovery usage coming out on the side of Toxapex. That should be... Alright, that is 4 uses of recovery that Toxapex has left, as Empoleon is at dangerously low HP, so it will use its final boost use. Araquanid likely going to use Rest here. Yep, Rest comes out, fully healing the Araquanid as Empoleon uses Roar. Empoleon forced to go back into Toxapex, as Low Kicks is too big of a threat. We're probably going to see the Araquanid come back out, as the Poison Jab comes out on the side of Toxapex this time around. We see a stockpile get used from the Sleep Talk on Mind Gaming, as we see a recovery use from Toxapex. That means he has 3 left. Alright, and we see the Araquanid still using Surf. Araquanid has 7 uses of Surf left, so those uses need to be as good as possible, as the Rest comes out again on the side of Mind Gaming. Toxapex getting into a dangerous HP, as Empoleon does get let back onto the field. We see a stockpile ×2. Toxapex comes back in to block the Surfs. Fortunately, Sleep Talk does not bring a good move to Mind Gaming, as we see 22% get landed onto the Toxapex. We're going to probably see a recover from Toxapex here. Yep, now it has 2 uses of recovery left, as Araquanid still slowly whittling it down. This burn actually doing a lot to help Mind Gaming make progress against this Toxapex, as we do see the Rest come out again. How many Sleep Talk uses does it have left? Oh, that is actually its final Rest use, and it only has 2 uses of Sleep Talk left. So let's see, what will those final uses of Sleep Talk bring? See a Rest, which does nothing. Surf could have been very critical here, and Surf on the Toxapex does land, but as it's the final use of that, the Toxapex will now have a Toxic, and this time it will stay, as there are no more Rest uses on Mind Gaming's Araquanid. And it will soon also run out of Surfs, as it has 2 left. Empoleon is brutally weakened at this point in the game, but we see a swap into Low Kicks come out, as Mind Gaming opts to go for the double into Arachnid again to prevent Toxapex from getting that Toxic onto low kicks. As he goes in protecting the area cover, but instead Empoleon comes out, that still works inside of Mind Gaming, as we do see the roar come out on Empoleon, knocking out the Arachnid. But now Empoleon can no longer roar out the low kicks, as low kicks does get the ×2. Now Toxapex is in, and it can finally get off that Toxic, but will Mind Gaming be able to break through the Dondozo, who's at 100% HP? Dondozo taking chip damage from the rocks, and no, it does not look like Mind Gaming will be able to break through this. So, while it was a valiant attempt, it appears that even Bug's greatest soldier will not be able to break through the behemoth that is this Dondozo, as it still has too many uses of rest, and it's just far too bulky. But yeah, a well-played match by Mind Gaming. Unfortunately, Dondozo is just far too tanky for it to deal with without a powerful special attacker, and even with Caesar's brutal attempts at destroying Dondozo with its Trailblaze, Unaware just made it far too difficult for Caesar to break through that team. So, well played by Mind Gaming, but unfortunately Sificon's team was just far too prepped to deal with this Bug team. Bug definitely still having a good showing here, and showing what it's capable of even against the more fatter types. So, well played to both sides, honestly. This is a good match to watch. But let's move on to the next one, which is Wincon versus Gondra. Wincon opting for a mixture of Roaring Moon and Walking Wake together. Not a very common combo. And obviously has Latias, Dragapult, and the Steel Dragon Twins. Gondra opting for a Sunfire team with the same 6 Pokemon, not even a Torkoal to be original. But yes, nothing surprising on the side of Gondra. Maybe the Volcarona set will be unique, we'll see. Wincon should have the advantage here though, since he has the most brutal Fire Killer. We see the Ogerpon go straight for Play Rough, but Play Rough not doing enough to Raging Bolt. Here comes Goodra Hisui, as Goodra is probably going to be able to blank out this Volcarona. Goodra easily taking the Flamethrower and easily Dragon Tailing the Volcarona out of the match. Now we see the Cinderace come in as Latias comes out. Cinderace opting for a low kick instead of close combat. Or no, not close combat, high jump kick, sorry. Probably doing that for the accuracy, but Raging Bolt does get the Healing Wish onto it. As Raging Bolt... No, I said that right. Raging Bolt does take the Healing Wish and fully recovers its HP. Thunderbolt, 2-hit KOing that Heatran, as we see Wincon stay in on the Volcarona. Volcarona actually getting paralyzed too. Oh, that paralysis is actually brutal. That paralysis is very brutal, actually. Low kick coming out on the side of Cinderace. On the Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt just clicks Thunderbolt again, and one-shots Cinderace. We see the Poltergeist come out and actually KO the Raging Bolt. But, as you can see, Gondra was not able to use his Sun at all due to the existence of Walking Wake, and also low-key the existence of Raging Bolt as well, since its Thunderclaps would have been doing what its Thunderbolts were currently doing. But this time it would have had priority, so yeah, unfortunate. And we don't see anything here, so Bitter Blade is used 2 times onto Archelodon, but Archelodon is still able to KO Cerulege with the Draco Meteor, as we see Ninetales come out, but Ninetales is not going to be enough to KO the rest of this Dragon team, as we probably will see the Walking Wake, and Walking Wake gets that Photosynthesis speed boost and will be able to kill Ninetales with its Hydro Steam, securing the match for Wincon. That was a comparatively very quick match, but yeah, just one of the many reasons why Fire is not able to succeed in this metagame. just too many good photosynthesis users that can work against fire, and fire, once again, just is an extremely linear type, and is very easy to prep for as a result. Fire is still incredibly powerful, but when it's prepped for appropriately by some of the best types in the game, it is just unable to really make that big of an impact. So, yeah, this is just another brutal match to show just how dominant Dragon is and how good it is against certain types. Latios, once again, proving how good its utility with Healing Wishes, as Wincon could just decide to use a Draco Meteor in front of Ogrepawn that risklessly, and just afford to trade all of that HP with the Heart Flame Ogrepawn, not even being afraid of lowering its HP because he knows he has Latios in the back to heal it back to full HP, and he has far too many other win conditions on his team to just secure the win. It was just a brutal match. But yeah, well played to Wincon, well played. But we will move on to the next match, which is Bluxio versus Tuff. Tuff opting for a fairy team with just a Primarina, no Azumarill, and a Comfy, interestingly enough, as well as the Galarian Weezing. A very interesting team from the side of Tuff. The Galarian Weezing may be... There is a possibility that it could be neutralizing gas, but it is very likely still Levitate. And on Bluxio's side, we see Grass with Torterra and Abomasnow. Abomasnow on Grass, actually, while it is typically uncommon, it is actually very good at setting up screens. And as you can see with its Sinistra and Hisuian Lilligant, also it's lucky the entire team actually benefits a lot from Abomasnow's screens. So this could be a very good optimization here by Bluxio. Bluxio also probably taking into the fact that fire could just completely destroy this type. And Abomasnow is actually one of the best ways to deal with fire as grass, as it can block the sun boosts with its snow and potentially allow some of Grass's users to get that turn that they need to set up or do whatever. But yeah, without further ado, let's see how this match goes. So I see the Masquerade lead, and yep, it is neutralizing gas on the Galarian Weezing. The neutralizing gas likely there to help deal with Gliscor, but instead it will probably not do that much against the Ogrepawn, or against this grass team in general. Actually, no, it could do a lot against this grass team, as the neutralizing gas can prevent Abomasnow from getting its screen set up. Fortunately, the snow warning does come down, so it will be able to set up its screens. As we see Fluttermane come out, but Fluttermane is unable to do anything. As we see the Primarina block the Blizzard from Abomasnow. Psychic Noise coming out and preventing Sinistra from using its Machagacha, as it is a healing move by technicality. We see Comfy come out on the side of Tuff, as the heal block does end. Bluxio forced out and goes into Torterra to try and stop the Comfy from setting up. Tuff swaps out to go into Weezing, as the balloon does get popped and Bullet Seed is used by the Torterra. Sinistra comes out on the side of Bluxio as it takes a Will-O-Wisp to the face from Tuff's Weezing. Neutralizing gas is worn off, as we do see the Shadow Ball do a ton of damage to the Iron Valiant, but with the screens now no longer present, the knockoff does a ton of damage to the Sinistra. The close combat coming through on the side of Iron Valiant, and even with the defense boost, Abomasnow still gets KO'd by the Iron Valiant with close combat. We see Yaskarada come out and force out the Iron Valiant, Lilligant coming in and getting a crucial sleep powder that may allow it to set up and potentially sweep, but I do not believe Lilligant has what it needs to KO. Oh, the neutralizing gas, a double whammy for Lilligant here, as it both removes its hustle, but also allows it to have 100% accuracy. But yeah, Unfortunately, if it did have Hustle, Weezing would have been KO'd. But sadly, Weezing was not able to get KO'd due to it removing Logan's Hustle. Biascarada getting KO'd by the Iron Valiant. And now it is all up to Torterra to try and sweep this team. It is able to take the close combat, but will its Stealth Smash be enough? Unfortunately not, because this Iron Valiant comes equipped with Shadow Sneak, and just like that, Bluxio does fall to Tuff's Fairy team. Now, Bluxio's team was definitely equipped to try and deal as best as it can with Fire, and also be able to deal with Dragon relatively well as well. Since most Dragon teams are typically using Raging Bolt, Grass actually is able to deal with Raging Bolt a bit better than most types, but unfortunately, Bluxio did not face a Dragon or Dark team that this team would have otherwise been probably decent against, and instead it faced a Fairy team that was a bit prepped for flying, as the neutralizing gas Weezing is able to potentially, depending on how long the Gliscor stays in, do a ton of damage to the Gliscor and actually force it out. And the Balloon is definitely giving it that ideation, as it can come in on the Gliscor Earthquake for free, and if they don't know that the Weezing is going to be Levitate or neutralizing gas, they have to constantly play around that and be careful, because if this Gliscor stays in for too long, it can end up taking 36% of its health just from its ability, and from Weezing just swishing in for free on it. And Weezing doesn't really take that much stuff from Gliscor in the first place, so the Gliscor user is actually under a lot of pressure in that regard. And reminder that is also Gliscor's only source of healing. So Weezing can just completely negate Gliscor from passively healing the entire match, which is a very, very powerful tool against flying and ground. But, yeah, unfortunately neither techs were really present in this game. I don't think either side was expecting either side to bring the types that they did. But, yeah, Tuff does come out on top, as Fairy is the stronger type in this matchup. Shockingly, Fluttermane didn't even do that much this game. It was pretty much an Iron Valiant show. But yeah, Glaring Weezing is actually really funny, because Glaring Weezing is actually also really good against Grass, due to it being a poison type, and it also has Flamethrower and Will-O-Wisp, which prevents Grass's strong physical attackers from doing much. It also kind of comes in pretty well against Ogrepon, Hearthflame, as it does have the Sludge Bomb, and it is a very powerful physical wall, so it doesn't really take that much from it. But yeah, unfortunate matchup for Bluxio, but unfortunately Tuff does come out on top here. Moving on though, we have Z's versus Captain Kraken. Captain Kraken opting for a Steel team with both Birds, Corviknight, and Skarmory. Pretty standard stuff, as Z's is opting for a triple Cantonian Birds with Landorus and Gliscor and Skarmory. Not opting to use Corviknight, interestingly enough, but it is very likely that Z's is doing this due to Skarmory's access to hazards, as he may have Stealth Rock instead on his Gliscor. But yes, let's see how this game goes. Alright, so the Iron Treads is led off by Captain Kraken, as the Moltres immediately posing a threat to the Steel team. We see the Skarmory come out on Z's side, but he doubles out into Gliscor. Gliscor taking the damage from Magma Storm, but is able to... is able to take that, as we see the Stealth Rock come down on the side of Heatran. Captain Kraken apparently, because I don't believe that Heatran had... No, the balloon was just popped, so yeah, Gliscor does get swapped out, the Ice Spinner coming out, and getting blanked by Skarmory. Skarmory losing its heavy-duty boots, as we do see a spike come out on the side of Z's. Goldego comes out, revealing its own boots, as it takes 0 damage from the spikes. Thunder Wave comes out but blanks into Zapdos as Zapdos uses a Hurricane that crits our Gholdengo. Discharge comes out as Hex does a ton of damage to Zapdos. Discharge, Z's potentially looking for a paralysis on the discharge. Zapdos is pressure on the set, so Captain Kraken has to be mindful of his uses of Hex here, as they could potentially... yes, here we go. The Zapdos is slowly stalling out Captain Kraken's uses of Hex, but we do see a ton of damage get laid onto the Zapdos in that moment in time. Articuno still has pressure, but it is 2-hit KO'd by the +4 Gholdengo. Not super shocking, but it is very bad for Z's, as Articuno is one of the mods that it needs to prevent Gholdengo from completely sweeping its team. We do see the Landorus get a KO onto the Iron Treads, as we see Corviknight come out and use Spray Bird on the Moltres. Moltres actually still Flame Body instead of Pressure, so no triple pressure stall. As we do see the Roost come out on the side of Moltres, keeping it healthy. Scorching Sands doing a ton of damage to Heatran, but Heatran responding with its own powerful Power Gem. Power Gem still doing a ton to Moltres as it tries to keep itself healthy. The Power Gem still being used quite a bit, as Captain Kraken is essentially trying to force the Moltres into using Scorching Sands to KO it. As now Archaludon comes in. Is it Scarf? Is it Standard? We'll see. We see a Dark Pulse come out from the Archaludon, so it likely is Scarf, as we see the Corviknight come out as a response to the Gliscor. Gliscor getting its Sword Stance off and getting knockoff onto the Corviknight. Skarmory likely getting put in to phase out the Corviknight, as we see a Roost and Substitute come out on the side of Corviknight. Z's opts to get all of his spikes up as he is about to click Whirlwind, most likely. Yes, we see the Whirlwind come out, and Archaludon does take the full spikes damage. Gliscor comes out. A brutal special defense drop on the Gliscor, but Captain Kraken does opt to go into Gholdengo instead of trying to take advantage of it, as the special defense drop plus Hex would have been a brutal combo for Gliscor to deal with, as we do see the Corviknight come back out into the face of Landorus. Landorus is the one instead to get those rocks off instead of Gliscor. Gliscor opting for a Sword Stance set, as you see the Flamethrower come through on Moltres, but the Flamethrower, the Hex as a response, does get the KO onto the Moltres, as Gholdengo will fall. And Archaludon, taking a ton of damage from hazards, comes onto the field. The Flash Cannon will get the KO onto Landorus. Gliscor clicking Protect into the Archaludon, as the Archaludon does opt to stay in. A knockoff, removing the Choice Scarf and giving Archaludon a little bit of a defense boost, as we do still see the Flash Cannon get used. Draco Meteor coming out and getting that KO onto Gliscor, very crucial for Captain Kraken's success this game. Corviknight comes out to respond to the Zapdos, but Zapdos will respond instead with its Discharge, doing a ton of damage. Archaludon will get KO'd by the spikes, and Skarmory will unfortunately be KO'd by the Zapdos eventually. As we do see Z's constantly go for a Roost. Skarmory revealing that is ID press, but fortunately that will not matter here. But yeah, Z's will get the victory, and Captain Kraken will fall. Decently well played match by both sides, as we do see Moltres team finally get that victory against Steel that it typically is teched to deal with. So yeah, not much to say. Gholdengo once again proving just how scary it can be against flying, especially if it is able to get those Thunder Blaze off. But in both times I've seen Gholdengo against flying, it has struggled to get those Thunder Blaze off because of the presence of Zapdos. So maybe that is the reason why Zapdos is brought commonly on some of these flying teams. Is a potential reason why. Also may also be why there are typically 2 ground types on the flying team instead of just 1. But yeah. Well played to both sides. Let's move on to the next match, which will be Star Fox versus Fentropy. We see on the side of Star Fox a Steel team with Hisuian and Goodra. And on the side of Fentropy, we see a team that we've seen at the earlier stages of this tournament, which is a Enamorous Dragonite team with standard bulky core. Interestingly enough, there's no Tornadus on this team, so let's see how the Zapdos that is likely replacing this Tornadus does in this matchup. Also opting for double Iron Birds on the flying team. So let's see how this goes. Alright, so we do see the Iron Treads lead, but both sides opt to switch out into their Steel types, as Gholdengo does come out on the side of Star Fox and click Shadow Ball on the Corviknight. See another Shadow Ball come out as Corviknight opts instead to Roost. Star Fox having to be careful as Corviknight does have pressure. Corviknight opting to U-turn out at a dangerous HP. As we see Landorus come out. Landorus clicking the Focus Blast and getting Corviknight to 50% HP. Fentropy clicking Nasty Plots and getting a big threat advantage onto the Corviknight. Corviknight taking 98% and KOing itself with Brave Bird. As we do see Iron Treads come out. Iron Treads is naturally faster than Landorus, so Landorus is forced to swap out. As Discovery does block the Ice Spitter. Iron Treads opting for Iron Defense. Not a common set at all. As we do see the Iron Defense allow it to get a powerful body press onto the Zapdos, but it does not do as much damage as Star Fox probably wanted. As Zapdos opts to Roost and U-turn onto the Goodra, who reveals its GUI. And Goodra opting to use Ice Beam on the Corviknight, so very likely it is the Assault Vest set. Gholdengo comes out as a response to the Corviknight, as Corviknight is able to heal itself with its Roost. Corviknight, once again, U-turning out into Landorus, who threatens out Gholdengo, and we see Star Fox respond with Heatran. Heatran getting one-hit KO'd by the Earth Power that follows. Iron Treads once again forcing out the Landorus, as we see Zapdos and Goodra face off against each other. Zapdos once again opting to U-turn in the front of Goodra as it goes into Corviknight to look for another Roost, but Corviknight getting caught out by the Flamethrower by our Goodra. As Landorus gets swapped in and doubles out into Zapdos. Roost is used by Fentropy, but Goodra has Earthquake. And an Ice Beam does get the KO onto Zapdos. This Assault wait, it's not even Assault Vest, it's Leftovers. So this Goodra actually has it's a seemingly fully offensive Goodra, as it does take 90% from the Earth Power, but it is able to get those very critical KOs on every single Pokemon on Fentropy's team so far. As we do see the Draco Meteor final move reveal, getting a ton of damage onto Dragonite. The GUI going to lower Dragonite's speed and therefore allow Iron Treads to outspeed it. As the Ice Bender does come out on the side of Iron Treads again, but Iron Treads may be going to... no, it does not go for the Iron Defense. As we see Scarfire click Roost. Gholdengo now in a very good spot to start ripping off those Shadow Balls. As we do see Skarmory click the Brave Bird onto Gholdengo, but not much avail. as Fentropy does switch into Dragonite. Dragonite getting KO'd, but now Nemorous is in. Mystical Fire will be used as Heatran is no longer present. Will this be the end of Star Fox? We shall see. Arcaldon comes out. Will it be a Choice Scarf? No, it will not be. Well, actually, it is possible that the Enamorous is also a Choice Scarf. But we do see, but regardless, Arcaldon is not choiced, and it does get the Thunder Wave and the subsequent Paralysis proc. The Mystical Fire coming out. Body Press. Unfortunately, Enamorous is a quad resistant Pokemon to the Body Press, so it will take very little, even despite its frailty, and a +2 defense boost on Arcaldon's side. Will Fentropy get paralyzed this turn? No, he will not, and the Mystical Fire will be successful, but the Paralysis will make it so that it is slower than Gholdengo, and I think that will be the game, as Kamari does fall to the Stealth Rocks. Very well played by Star Fox. He utilized his offensive Goodra very well this match, as it had pretty much every single move it could have ever wanted in every situation that it needed against this team. So yeah, just good prep and good play by Star Fox, just perfectly operating the team, I would say. But Fentropy also still playing as well as he could in that situation. I don't think a lot of us, if we were on Fentropy's point of view, would have expected that Goodra set to do what it did. So, well played to both sides, but we will be moving on as we see TWK versus Clean in a ground versus ghost matchup. Now, TWK opting for a fake sand ground team with... Actually, no, this isn't fake sand because it does have Excadrill. But we do see a Gastrodon on the team alongside Clodsire. So that's actually an interesting development because I don't think we've seen a ground Gastrodon at all this tournament, I'm pretty sure. So I'm interested to see what it will do in this matchup, and if it will be Water Storm Drain or if it will be Sticky Hold. And Clodsire maybe opts instead to be Unaware over Water Absorber. Maybe they're both water immunities, we'll see. And on the side of Clean, we do have Ghost Team with Hisui and Goodra, so we'll see if there's any tomfoolery afoot with Clean's positioning in this game. Alright, we see the immediate lead with Great Tusk. This is the real Spectrier, as it does get the lowest onto Great Tusk. Great Tusk unable to KO Spectrier with the subsequent knockoff due to the burn and the weakening of knockoff's power due to Spectrier not having an item, as Clean will force out the Iron Treads. Will-O-Wisp used again on the Spectrier, this time onto Hippowdon, as we see a swap from Clean into his Bramblegast. Gastrodon not trying to take anything from Bramblegast actually, as the spikes do come out on the side of Clean. Spectrier coming back out as Clodsire gets off its toxic spikes. Ghost possibly going to be able to get those spikes removed by the Bramblegast, as we do see a Headlong Rush get the KO onto Spectrier. And Bramblegast will be taking the poison damage as Clodsire comes back out. Clodsire... Actually, no, there isn't. I don't know what I was thinking. But yeah, we do see the Hisuian Goodra come out, or not Hisuian Goodra, Hisuian Zoroark come out. Swords Dance, obviously, going to be used, as Poltergeist does do a ton of damage to the Hippowdon. Great Tusk coming in to sacrifice itself. Low Kick used again. Low Kick actually a decent move to use, as it does lack fighting coverage, and Low Kick will make up for that against the Pokemon that it needs to hit. Throat Chopper will get the KO onto Bramblegast, however, as we do see the Shadow Ball come out from Clean's Gholdengo. Alright, now the fake Gholdengo comes out, as we see Clodsire come out to deal with that. Is this Clodsire actually unaware, though? It is not, because it would not have gotten Oakwood there. The Poltergeist does get the KO onto the Clodsire, as we see Gastrodon come out to take the Poltergeist, but the Poltergeist, the +4 Poltergeist that does KO Gastrodon as well. Excadrill should be faster than the Goodra, though. Than the, not Goodra, why do I keep saying Goodra? The Zoroark, but Zoroark does have Shadow Sneak to KO the Excadrill, as we do see Hippowdon come out again, and Fusien Zoroark does fall due to toxic damage and Sandstorm Chip. And now Landorus is the only thing on TWK's side to KO, but it does fall to the Dragapult Breaker Meteor. But yeah, fortunately TWK will fall to Clean's Ghost Team. Clean playing decently well this match, taking advantage of his Will-O-Wisp Spectrier and making use of TWK's more physically offensive oriented team. Spectrier proving once again just how dangerous it can be, even with its bulkier sets and not so powerful Specs sets or Nasty Plot sets. Interestingly enough, Cerulean did not get used, but then again, with Sandstorm omnipresent, it's very hard to find an opportunity to use Cerulean effectively in this matchup. But Hisuian Zoroark did do a lot, so Hisuian Zoroark stocks are probably going up as a result of this match. But with that being said, let's move on to the next match. Well played to both sides though. Twinkay versus RoyalReloaded. RoyalReloaded opting for a fairy team with double waters, and Twinkay using a team of Inimorous Dragonite offensive core with Gyarados and Moltres. This is a very interesting flying team, but this is just an example of you just being able to mishmash a ton of flying types together, and it still forms a very solid core as long as you know what you're building for. So Twinkay's team is very interesting, but all these bonds on flying are relatively common. So it's just the combination of these bonds that is interesting, and not so much the bonds themselves, if that makes sense. But yeah, without further ado, let's see how this match goes. So, we see the instant Moltres lead into the Klefki as Klefki instantly gets up of both screens. Moltres opting to U-turn out into the Corviknight. Defocking the screens away, as Primarina does get the Surf off onto it, but Corviknight will U-turn into the Gyarados, who gets off a Intimidate onto the Primarina. The Earthquake does come out, but does not do a ton of damage to Hatterene, as Hatterene will easily take it. The Calm Mind coming out on the side of Hatterene, but these Corviknight sets tend to have Iron Head. Babiri Berry coming out to take the hit, but unfortunately Hatterene does get flinched and stops the, and it will be prevented from using the now revealed Mystical Fire on the Corviknight beforehand. It could have potentially gotten the KO, but sadly it did not. As we do see Twinkay opt to boost again, trying to possibly wear down Mystical Fire usages, but Twinkay actually trying to opt for keeping Corviknight as healthy as possible before KOing the Hatterene, as he recognizes the HP that he's able to recover with leftovers, as the Azumarill does come out. Gyarados still opting to weaken the Azumarill, as the Azumarill still gets up to max attack in despite the Intimidate use, as we do see the knockoff one-hit KO the Gyarados. We see Dragonite come out and get the KO onto Azumarill, as Fluttermane now comes through. Fluttermane opting for Calm Mind. 2 Calm Mind uses, as Fluttermane is now in a very, very strong position here. Does it have Hex? No, it has Shadow Ball, which one-hit KOs the Gliscor, and it still has Life Orb on top of that. Healing Wish will come out and fully heal our Corviknight, but the Corviknight could potentially still get one-hit KO'd here. No, Corviknight does survive, and the Iron Head will get the KO onto Fluttermane. Fluttermane now gone, but Twinkay's team is very weakened as a result. Thunderbolt coming out on the Iron Valiant, showing that it is not a physical set, or it could be mixed still. But the Thunderbolt will get a lot of damage onto the Dragon Knight, as we do see Moltres come out. The Burn coming onto Iron Valiant, and additionally weakening it along with its Life Orb chip. Corviknight does come out, and Corviknight is still susceptible to the Thunderbolt, but will read it. He does not read it, and the Dragon Knight will be able to get the extreme speed off and KO the Iron Valiant. Primarina now coming out, as we do see the Roost on the side of Twinkay come out, but the Moonblast will be enough to KO, as Corviknight does come out. Klefki coming back out, as we see. So the reason for a load of likely swapped out is because his Primarina was Specs. Yeah, as we don't see a reveal of leftovers, so yes, the Specs will come out, as the Reflect from Klefki will hopefully allow Primarina to get the damage off that it needs before Corviknight is able to KO it. Corviknight is still incredibly tanky, considering that this is likely a Choice Specs Primarina. Corviknight will most likely run out of Roost uses before it's able to KO the Primarina, as Primarina is able to keep it on its toes. The Reflect doing a lot to keep the Primarina healthy even in the face of those Iron Heads, as this shall be the end of Corviknight here, and the fall of Twinkay in this match. RoyalReloaded will be taking the victory home this game, as Twinkay will fall due to the overall power of Fairy. This is just a very good showing of how dangerous Fairy is, even against a strong flying team like Twinkay's. Both sides played well, so yeah. This is just another game where Fairy just completely dominates. Really makes you question why it's not used as much as you would think, but yeah. We'll like both sides. Next up we have Hammy versus Sabella. Sabella opting for a steel team, or not a steel team, a dragon team with double steals and a Dragon Knight, interestingly enough, who hasn't been seen a lot this tournament on Dragon. And Hammy is opting for a steel team with the double steals, or the double dragons, sorry, and Heatran and Iron Treads. Okay, no, this is just a standard steel team with Fusien Gondra, sorry. But we shall see how this match goes, because this is a very common matchup that we've seen quite a few times. But it's played out differently, so let's see how this one plays out. So, we got Heatran lead into Roaring Moon. Likely Heatran going to... Okay, Heatran does not opt to swap, as the Roaring Moon does U-turn the Heatran and get rid of its balloon. Gondra comes out, and Dragon Tails the Heatran away, as the Heatran does get the Stealth Rocks up. Raging Bolt revealing that it is not Heavy Duty Boots, as we do see the Draco Meteor come out on the side of Sabella, doing quite a bit of damage to Heatran, as Hammy opts to use Magma Storm on the Latias. Side Shock coming out on the side of Sabella, as we do see the Power Gem from Hammy come out and prevent, and since the Latias can't switch out, it is now KO'd, which means that the lifeline on Dragon's side is now gone. So let's see how Hammy is able to take advantage of this pick. As the Heatran does fall, and Raging Bolt is put back in. Skarmory getting a couple of spikes off as Gondra comes out to take the Raging Bolt the Draco Meteor from Raging Bolt, as Sabella's own Gondra comes out, but Sabella's Gondra is instantly hit by a Dragon Tail, and now it will also take another round of those very dangerous hazards, as Gholdengo comes out on the side of Hammy, Body Press doing 0 damage to the Gholdengo, as Gholdengo opts for a Nasty Plot. Archaludon getting off some rocks before it leaves into Sabella's own Fusien Gondra, who will be taking a Make It Rain. That only lowers Gholdengo's special attack by 1. Roaring Moon coming out though, threatening out the Gholdengo with its knockoff, as we do see the U-turn come out, but the Rocky Helmet will put it in range 2. I think Roaring Boom can come in again, because I think Spikes at this point only does 8. It's either 18 or 16% damage. So, but yeah, Sabella brutally does miss both the Strike of the Years, which is not good for his team, as he needed that Gondra to be brought down as fast as possible. Because as you can see, if the Gondra was KO'd, he would not have gotten that phase off onto the Dragonite. And now Archaludon is back in. Once again, Sabella can't really do anything to this Gholdengo with his own Archaludon. Flash Cannon does come out and gets rid of the balloon, but how much will this balloon removal matter? We will see. As Archaludon does take another Draco Meteor Abyss, very unlucky on the side of Sabella. As we do see the Make It Rain come through and get the KO onto him. As yes, Roaring Moon is able to take another round of hazards, but unfortunately it is KO'd, and the Rocky Helmet will stay intact due to Sabella being KO'd while trying to remove it, which is a niche mechanic that many might not know. But yes, at the end of the day, Hemi will take this victory against Sabella due to a little bit of luck and just general overall powerful play on his side. So well played to both sides, but yes, this is a very standard match. Can't really say a ton about it, so yeah. Interesting to see the Dark Pulse on the Archaludon though. Now we move on to Vaporends versus Havocknight, as we see Steel versus Steel. On the side of Vaporends, we have an Excadrill team, but on the side of Havocknight, we see a Hisuian Gudra team. So, if I was to make an educated guess, I would say Vaporends would have the advantage here, but maybe Havocknight has a surprise waiting for us that can help him deal with this Excadrill. We shall see. As we lead with the Excadrill in question into the Gholdengo, as Excadrill tries to click Earthquake immediately, and Havocknight goes into the Corviknight as a prediction. Knock off on the side of Havocknight gets rid of the Archaludon's leftovers on Vaporends' side, as he does go into his Gholdengo, but swaps back into his Gudra. The substitute coming out on the side of Vaporends, preventing Gudra from being able to Dragon Tail it out, as the Gudra is opting for a more offensive set, with Thunderbolt coming out to try and deal with it. But Vaporends will opt to use Substitute again, as it blocks the knockoff and prevents it from losing its leftovers. We will see another substitute come out on the side of Vaporends, as this Gudra is actually getting 1v1'd by the Heatran. Even without Magma Storm. As we do see the Iron Treads come out, but Heatran will once again use its substitute. Iron Treads able to get the Earthquake off, and the Flamethrower, no, not even Magma Storm, so 100% accurate Flamethrower, will get the KO onto Iron Treads. This is very bad for Havocknight, as we do see a bring-in of Vaporends' own Iron Treads, but it does get OHKO'd by the Gholdengo as Vaporends goes into his Excadrill, but Havocknight will perfectly swap into Corviknight to block the Earthquake. Gholdengo bigger, stare down, but we do see the Corviknight come out on the side of Vaporends, blocking the Shadow Ball and taking a decent amount of damage from it. Vaporends looking to potentially try to stall out the Gholdengo with its pressure, but it is very unlikely, as due to the Roost nerf, it cannot do that from full PP on the side of Vaporends. But it is very likely that he is trying to just get to a breakpoint where he can heal at 50% and then get a U-turn or something else off for trying to make progress against this Gholdengo. No, it will keep using Roost even at 100% HP. The special defense drop does come out right when he tries to use bulk up, as he is now forced into Archaludon, who is not going to take that Shadow Ball very well at all, as we do see it get KO'd by the Goldingo. Excadrill now comes out, but instantly he will double into Heatran to predict the Corviknight being brought in, and now Vaporends will likely use Substitute, as havocknight responds with his own Archaludon. Archaludon not very much liking that Earth Power, as it does take a ton of damage from it, but it will one-shot his Substitute. As we do see a Goldingo swap come out on the side of Vaporends, blocking the body press from Archaludon, as it does use a Shadow Ball to Oko, or not Oko, but KO the Archaludon. As we do see Vaporends very bravely staying in to try and KO Havocknight's Goldingo, but unfortunately it comes up just short of the KO. As Excadrill does come in and get the KO on Goldingo. Heatran now coming in. Clicking Earth Power, but unsuccessfully not hitting the target that it probably wanted, as we do see the taunt come out on the side of Vaporends, and it looks like he will try to bulk up here, but no, he does not. He instead goes into his own Excadrill, as we do see Corviknight come out on the side of Havocknight again, blocking the Earthquake. Vaporends trying to go for a cheeky stay in instead of swapping out, and tries to get the Earthquakes onto it, but Corviknight is going to be the bulk up set, which means Vaporends is in a very scary spot here. We are going to see Corviknight probably get threatened out by the Havocknight instead stays in to the Heatran. Goodra going to come out and try and take the Flamethrower, but with its low HP it is going to be unable to do so, as we do see Heatran on the side of Havocknight come out. Power Gem used against Vaporends' Corviknight, as Vaporends goes for the taunt against Havocknight's own Corviknight. Heatran coming out on the side of Havocknight again, as Roost is used by Vaporends. That will be his third to last usage of Roost, and that will be his second to last usage of Roost, as he has one more return of Roost left. Heatran comes out on the side of Vaporends, but Havocknight has put in his Corviknight. Heatran on the side of Havocknight comes out and blocks the Flamethrower from Vaporends' Heatran, as we see Vaporends swap back into Corviknight, but Corviknight is not able to take a Flash Fire boosted Flamethrower from that Heatran of Havocknight's. So we do see the Substitute come out though on the side of Vaporends, as the Earth Power one-hit KOs Havocknight's Heatran, and he will likely get the KO onto Corviknight as well. Vaporends bringing this match to an end. And as he says himself, a great showing of the power Sub-Heatran can bring into this matchup. Because in this mirror, it was very crucial. I thought that he would have the advantage due to Excadrill, but I was wrong. It was the Substitute Heatran all along that really brought this match into Vaporends' hands. As Excadrill just got perfectly checked every single time by Corviknight, but at the same time, because Corviknight was required to answer Excadrill all the time, it wasn't able to find the opportunities it needed to, or its teammates weren't able to find opportunities to do things themselves due to the presence of Excadrill constantly being able to Oko them. Because as you saw in this match, Goldingo was also able to do a lot of this matchup, but because every time that it got a KO against any of Vaporends' spawns, Excadrill would come out and then he would be in a very rough spot, as Vaporends was kind of in the driver's seat every time Excadrill forced a swap. So yeah, very well played by both sides though, but at the end of the day, Vaporends' Substitute Heatran will bring home this victory. Moving on though, we have Scarfire versus Fusien, and it's going to be a Dragon versus Steel matchup again. Scarfire with the double steals, and Latios, interestingly enough, instead of Latias. Let's see why that, and also Roaring Moon as well, and Garchomp. So, somewhat different team than what we're used to, no Raging Bolt whatsoever. So we shall see what this team offers. while Fusien is opting for a very standard, steel team with a Xiri and Gondra. So let's see how this goes. We do see the lead guard jump into the Iron Treads, which Scarfire is not pleased with, so they will be swapping into their own Archelodon and block the Ice Spinner, as it does take usage of that free turn to set up a Stealth Rock. Fusien responding with Gholdengo, but it gets its Shadow Ball stopped by the Xiri and Gondra. Xiri and Gondra is going to use Life Dew to try and heal itself a little bit, as Scarfire does use Knockoff to remove the choice specs from Gholdengo. Gholdengo opting to take the leftovers away from Gondra after it gets its choice specs removed, as the Gholdengo also has Recover on a choice spec set. But unfortunately, Scarfire removes both items, so now Trick will not be doing anything for the rest of this matchup, as the Life Dew doing a ton of work, keeping the Xiri and Gondra healthy in the face of this annoying Gholdengo. Scarfire weakening Gholdengo as much as they can with the Xiri and Gondra. Very unusual 1v1, as usually Xiri and Gondra would be forced out here, but due to the presence of Life Dew, Fusien is actually in a tough spot, and Gholdengo actually gets KO'd by the Xiri and Gondra, as the Xiri and Gondra on its dying breath will leave behind a GUI that will give its team the ability to respond to the Iron Treads, as we do see Dragapult come out and use Shadow Ball against the Fusion's Heatran. Fusien swapping out into his Gondra to try and take the Shadow Ball. The Dragon Tail coming out on the side of Xiri and Gondra, as we see it swap out the Archelodon into Garchomp, but Fusien is swapping into his Iron Treads as a response to this Garchomp, as the Scale Shot does come out and will raise Scarfire's speed. Iron Treads now KO'd by the Garchomp, as Fusien responds with his own Archelodon, and Scarfire responds with their own Archelodon, as it takes the Draco Meteor, but not very happily. Both sides recovering with leftovers. Scarfire potentially having lost the speed tie, as we do see the Archelodon still use its Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor doing very little damage now, as he is -6 special attack. And Scarfire will be clicking Sword Stance, and the Earthquake will come out, but to do 0 damage to the Corviknight that Fusien puts in. Scarfire stayed in, but the Fire Fang does get blocked by Heatran, as Heatran is seemingly Choice Scarf, as the Flash Cannon does come out and do a little bit of damage to the Garchomp. But with the removal of Heatran, this means the Fire Fang will be able to run free, as the Brave Bird from Corviknight will KO itself and the Garchomp. We do see the Dragapult come out on the side of Scarfire, as Fusien is put into an awkward spot, as he had the 50-50 which one he wanted to put in first, and unfortunately he lost that 50-50, as he does get the knockoff into the Choice Scarf Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon opting for knockoff. Roaring Moon continuing to use knockoff against the Archelodon, as the leftovers will be removed. Scarfire opting for Outrage, but the Outrage does very little damage into the +1 defense Archelodon, as Archelodon will get the KO onto Scarfire's Roaring Moon. But now here comes Latios, using its Life Orb and Ice Beam to KO the Archelodon, as Gondra will opt to protect to try and heal itself as much as possible, but in the face of Scarfire's team, will this be enough? Scarfire using Psyshock against the Gondra, as Gondra will force in the Dragapult, who opts to use Draco Meteor to do as much damage to Gondra as possible, and fortunately that will be the match, as Scarfire does get the KO onto the Xiri and Gondra and win this match. Well played by both sides, and again, this matchup is very team comp dependent, very side dependent, but yes, there is a lot that goes into this matchup. Unfortunately, Scarfire was able to win it this time. But yeah, not much else to add, but Life Dew Hisuian Gudra had a very nice showing. 1v1ing this annoying Goldingo set that probably would have been able to do well into any other Gudra set, but the Life Dew Gudra set would be able to work well. And unlike most recovery moves in this game, Life Dew actually still has the 16 PP. Now obviously it makes up for that in the fact that it only deals 25% healing, but for a wall like Hisuian Gudra, 25% is still a lot of useful HP to bring, as well as the leftovers healing. It would essentially be healing 30%, roughly 31% every single turn with Life Dew. And considering how bulky it is, even without Assault Vest and just with regular leftovers, having that extra bit of healing can make a world of a difference, and you saw that right here in this game. So that's the only thing I have to say, but very good match otherwise. LBN versus Xiri, as Xiri is opting for a water team with Walking Wake and Primarina, and LBN is opting for a rock team. Now, unfortunately, this rock team will probably get completely curb stomped because water completely destroyed this type. But before we watch the brutality that's probably going to unfold, let's just take a look at LBN's team. So, rock typically doesn't do very well due to the fact that it doesn't have Chuckle anymore. And without Chuckle, as Boom has mentioned before in the mid-season video, Chuckle allowed Rock to do its offensive pressure a lot easier. As with webs and rocks down, a lot of Rock's strong attackers could do a lot of damage. And pair that with Tyranitar's special defense boost, rock types could do a decently well against the majority of offense teams, and could do very well against balance teams as well, due to them having a little bit of special bulk that they could very well make usage of. And it's not like the mods on Rock are really that bad. The problem is that they don't work well together. And there's no real mods that can really help glue these types together. Now, LBN is actually pretty decently well prepped for water, as he does have the Garganackle that does a lot of damage to fatter water teams with its Salt Cure. And we do also have the Ogerpon Cornerstone, which is a rock grass type, and an offensive one at that, unlike Cradle. And it can actually do a lot of offensive pressure onto these water teams, but unfortunately, this team does not have a great answer to Urshifu, which will probably be the reason why they lose. But let's see how this match goes regardless. But Rock in this metagame is very rough because of Water's dominance, and also Fighting. Fighting was supposed to be seen as a very good type this tour, but it hasn't had the presence that you would think it would have otherwise. But yeah, that would have been another reason as to why it wouldn't have gotten used that much. But when I think of types that could potentially lose to Rock, typically, historically, Dragon does get beaten by Rock quite a bit, but I think in this metagame, Dragon probably would have still beaten Rock, so I don't think that's true. Steel definitely is still very good. Yeah, Rock probably would only be a very good call-out type against probably Fire and maybe Fairy and Ghost, but I think it's better against the mid-tier types, but it doesn't really do well against the super meta types in this generation. But yeah, enough filibustering for me. Let's take a look at this match. So LBN will lead with the Iron Boulder, and here comes Xiri instantly with her Shifu, but he is forced to swap out as Iron Boulder will threaten with Zen Headbutt. Toxapex will recover all of its HP, and Glimmora will come out. Glimmora will put down the spike as the toxic debris will come through, and both stacks of a toxic spikes will go through as the Ogerpon does come out and try to Horn Leech, but Horn Leech does very little damage to the Toxapex, who responds with Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb not doing that much into Garganackle, but Garganackle will use the Salt Cure and do a ton of damage to this Toxapex. Look at that, 25%, that is brutal. Will LBN use it again? Yes, they will, and it will do a very good chunk of damage to this Primarina, as the Protect does come out. Spark on the Aria coming through, but it will not be doing much to... Oh, actually, never mind. My bad. It actually just OK'd the Garganackle straight up. But Garganekl will be able to trade with the Primarina, but that is one of the biggest things that could have helped deal with Swampert and Tuxmix down, so the rest of this matchup will be very brutal for Elvian to deal with, as we do see the powerful head smashes land onto Swampert, but he is unable to get that 2-hit KO that they wanted, as he will fall to a flip turn, and Tyranitar will come out. Swampert will get KO'd by the Tyranitar, as we do see Fusien Samurott come out. Fusien Samurott will have Sacred Sword and KO the Tyranitar, as we see Overcon Cornerstone come in. Ivy Cudgel is used, but will not get the KO, as a Sacred Sword will come out and KO the Overcon due to the Poison Chip damage. And Iron Boulder will come out and get Sucker Punched by the Samurott, who will get Mighty Cleaved as a result, but Iron Boulder, no matter what it does, will die the next turn, so it does not matter what happens here. Walking Wake will take a Mighty Cleave, but it is not enough damage to KO, and Hydroseam will finish off this LBM. So, yeah, like I said, this was a brutal matchup for Water to deal with, and the Sparkling Aria on Primarina did far too much damage for the Garganekl to be able to deal with, so yeah. Yeah, this matchup was just horrible for Rock to deal with, and generally Rock is just not seen as a very good type. But I guess the hope was that it could maybe potentially get against Steel, and it would have actually done decent into Steel. This team actually would have done alright into Steel, as with the combination of Spikes and Arcanine, Hisuian Arcanine, and Garganekl wearing down a lot of Steel's mons pretty well. There is a chance that it could have done decently well, especially with Tyranitar Sand support, making it easier for Garganekl to work into Goldenga with the special defense boost, but unfortunately that is not what happened, and he instead got probably the worst matchup, which is Water. So, yeah, very unfortunate that this happened to LBN, but sometimes you gotta take risks to get a victory, but this time the risk did not work out. Well played to Xiri, though. Now we got Axzel versus Rio Vidal, as Axzel is opting for a Tinkaton team versus Rio Vidal's fighting team. Now, as someone who's played both of these types, I will say that fighting can win this matchup despite the type disparity, but Fairy is still in the driver's seat because Fluttermane is a very obnoxious mon for fighting to deal with. Because not only can Sneasler not one-hit KO it, but it also gets one-hit KO'd by it. So, yeah, this could be a very scary matchup, but it is possible for Rio Vidal to win this. So let's see if they're able to get that W. Alright, we see the Klefki lead, as Iron Valiant is led by Rio Vidal, but we do see the spikes instantly come out. Rapid Spin is instantly used, but Fluttermane will perfectly block it, and one-hit KO, the only thing that could remove those spikes, so now those spikes will just be doing permanent damage against the entirety of fighting, as Klefki will come out again, and click Reflect, and Reflect will do a ton because the only special attacker on the side of fighting will be Iron Valiant, and Iron Valiant is not going to be seen as that big of a threat, as the Moonblast will one-hit KO, or not really one-hit KO, but KO the Galley from near full. Destiny Bond coming out on the side of Iron Valiant though, and will take down the Fluttermane. That is a good tech, but Hatterene is still going to be a massive problem for the type to deal with, as the Sword Stance will come through. Psyshock will do a ton of damage onto the Iron Hands, as we do see the balloon get removed. Trick Room will be used, and it is still faster in Trick Room. Hatterene, an incredibly slow mod. And we will see the Keldeo come out, but Keldeo's not going to do anything, and the subsequent Sneasler will also not be able to do anything, even with the fake out if it does happen. But yeah. Yeah, Fairy, once again, proving its power. But yeah, like I said, this was potentially winnable, but it is brutal, because Axel just got that lead that they needed. The Destiny Bond was good, but unfortunately it is not enough because Fairy just made too big of a hole into fighting. to really allow fighting a way to come back. So yeah, not really even a ton that Rio Vidal could have really done because of the way the Axzel's team just functioned. Because he still has the annoying ass Tickaton and a bunch of other stuff as well. But yeah, this was just a real matchup. There's not really much to say here. Now we have UKRyD versus RindaOkami. Rinda is opting for a rain team with Kingdra, which we've been seeing a lot, and UK is opting for a fairy team with Tinkaton. So let's see how this goes. So we see the Cecil Edge instantly come out on the side of RindaOkami, leading with Samurott. Samurott has a focus sash, as Primarina does take that damage, but it is going to get up those spikes, which that is one of Fairy's few weaknesses, is that they don't really have a good way to deal with that sort of hazard acquisition. As we do see the Tinkaton come out, Moonblast will come through as the balloon will be popped. Pelipper will come out on the side of RindaOkami as Gigaton Hammer is going to land. And a Thunder Wave will get the Paralysis turn onto Pelipper as we see Klefki come out on the side of UK. Pelipper opting to U-turn into Primarina, and Primarina in a prime spot to tear a massive hole through this team. As we do see Klefki get a singular spike off before perishing. Flutterbane coming out and looking to rip some holes into RindaOkami's team now with its Thunderbolt, as RindaOkami does lack a electric immunity, which means that Flutterbane is able to do a lot of damage here. But we do see the Choice Scarf for Shifu. Unfortunately, the Pickpocket did not go through, as Tickaton did not survive combat. So the Shifu is able to keep its Choice Scarf. Hatterin will get the Trick Room off though, as Shifu does live on 1% HP, but it will die the subsequent turn. That extra turn may be crucial for UK though, as RindaOkami will put in a Primarina, and Primarina even with the power that it has will not be able to KO Hatterin in time. Hatterin is able to get the +1 and KO with the Psy Shock though, as the Surf from Kingdra does come out. Will Iron Valiant and Fluttermane be able to deal with this though, is the question. As we do see Pelipper lose its heavy duty boots, a crucial paralysis wasting a turn of Rain, as we do see Fluttermane come out. Fluttermane taking the Hurricane, but it will be confused, which is very unideal. We see Iron Valiant come out again and take the Hurricane, and I think UK may have outplayed RindaOkami, as that one turn of paralysis actually completely dictated the match, as it allowed UK enough time to pivot between the two of his Pokemon to survive and actually get the KO onto Kingdra, who is no longer faster because of Rain. Well played to UKRyD for recognizing that and acting on it immediately. Very well played, but yeah, this is just yet another powerful showing for Fairy yet again. But yeah, just really well played to UKRyD, and that was a very good showing of awareness by him, because I think those who may have not have analyzed the match properly would probably not have done what he did there. That was a very good awareness check by UKRyD. So just very well played to him. Very well played to him. RindaOkami also played well as well, but unfortunately UK just absolutely outplayed this matchup. So well done. And now the final match of this week will be King Choco versus Azick. King Choco opting for a flying team with double steals, and Azick opting for a fighting team with Scrafty. So let's see how this goes. So, Skarmory will be led into the Iron Hands as Great Tusk is put in instead on the side of Azick. Iron Defense instantly used by King Choco as he goes for the body press. Azick is just responding by putting up some stealth rocks to get some pressure onto the flying team, as we do see Iron Valiant take the body press from Skarmory. Iron Valiant possibly threatening a KO with Life Orb Thunderbolt, as we do see the Thunderbolt come out. No Life Orb though, so maybe it is Expert Belt instead. Zapdos taking a ton of damage, but we do see the Gliscor come out to respond to the Iron Hands. Protect is used, but will be protecting from nothing as Urshifu does come out. Gliscor cannot use Protect against Urshifu due to Unseen Fist, so we do see the Surgeon Strikes that chip the Dragonite to 76% HP, as Dragonite does confirm that it is Heavy Duty Boots, and roosts back up to full HP, so that it can make use of its multi-scale again. We have Corviknight coming out to respond to the Great Tusk Ice Spinner, as we see Iron Hands get put in on the Corviknight Defog, which removes the rocks. U-Turn is used by King Choco to go back into his Zapdos. He will take the Thunder Punch, and Roost will allow it to take more subsequent Thunder Punches, but unfortunately Azick does call it out and uses Close Combat instead to get the KO onto Zapdos. We see Gliscor led in, but doubled out into Enamorus by the side of King Choco. King Choco now has to scramble for an answer, and he ends up sacking his Scrafty as a result. Iron Hands coming back out and being a threat, as the Ice Punch does come out. Skarmory able to take it, but without Rocky Helmet will not get that chip that he needs onto the Iron Hands, as Iron Hands on Azick's side is put into Iron Valiant, but Iron Valiant cannot respond to the Enamorus, as Enamorus does get another KO. Sneasler comes out to respond to the Enamorus, and opts for a Sword Stance, but unfortunately Gliscor will be able to take whatever Sneasler can do, and the knockoff will remove Urshifu's Choice Scarf very critically, as Dragonite is going to take the Surging Strikes yet again. Dragonite continues to take the Surging Strikes from Azick's Urshifu, as we do see the Roost come out again from King Choco. Ice Punch is used and gets the KO for Dragonite, so unfortunately that removal of Choice Scarf actually biting King Choco a bit in the butt, but we do see Enamorus come out, but the Sneasler will have its Unburden activated by King Choco. Azick will opt to instead go for the Urshifu instead of going for the attack on to that Enamorus, as Skarmory is put back in and King Choco goes into Gliscor. A critical hit, brutally lowering Gliscor's HP bar from Iron Valiant, Isaac's Iron Valiant, as Corviknight and Urshifu are put into each other to stare down. Urshifu opting to use Close Combat in front of the Corviknight, as Corviknight do turns at a dangerous HP. Enamorus coming out yet again and proving to be a massive threat to the fighting team, as it does pick up another KO. Iron Hands comes out as a response, but Gliscor, if he doesn't get the read, will be potentially killed, but Gliscor does come back in to a proper read, as we do see Enamorus come out, and Urshifu Rapid Strike trying to come out to try and respond to the Gliscor Protect, but unfortunately King Choco reads that and is able to get the KO onto the Urshifu, removing it from the game. Corviknight does come out onto the Iron Hands, as we do see Gliscor looking to click Protect here, but unfortunately Gliscor does not use Protect, and he does use Earthquake instead. Azick still using Ice Punch to get the KO, as Stealth Rocket does get used by King Choco, and he is able to take the Thunder Punch decently well, as we do see the Thunderbolt come out on Iron Valiant. Now, will Enamorus be able to get the KO onto Iron Hands at that HP? I think yes, and it does. King Choco playing exceptionally well in this matchup, as he was actually in a very dangerous spot in multiple times in this game, but was able to outplay and, well, not really outplay, but outmaneuver and just pilot his team very well to beat Azick's fighting team. Azick played as well as he could have in this matchup, but fortunately King Choco did play just a tiny bit better and was able to get that victory. And that will be the end of Week 7. And that will be the end of hopefully these hour-long overviews for MWP, as they should be significantly shorter, as there will be half of the amount of games next week. So It should be hopefully under an hour, but who knows, maybe there'll be another 500 turn flying game again that I'll have to cover. We'll see. But yeah, so far this tournament has been very exciting. I've been loving seeing a lot of the teams that we've seen, and even though there isn't a ton of variety in some of the matchups, like the Dragon and Steel teams are somewhat mishmashy, but we have seen a ton of creativity on the side of flying, on the side of water, which is always nice to see, and some of the lesser used types are getting their time to shine as well. We've seen Ghost do very well, we've seen Fairy do exceptionally well, we've seen Fighting do decently well. It's been very nice to see this tournament, and I think this does just prove that the metagame is in a relatively decent spot. The only thing that could maybe be concerning is probably the overall just demonic presence of Dragon and Steel in this tournament. It's just, those two types have just been very, very present. Especially Steel. Steel seems to be maybe a bit too strong, but I can't really think of anything that would actually reasonably make it a little less strong, so I think the metagame is still fine the way it is right now. And these games have been exciting to watch, so overall I think this MWP is shaping up to be a fun and a very exciting one, and definitely a very fun one. But with that being said, that should be the end of this video. So once MWP is over, we will move back to the more fun, casual videos again. And I'll probably talk a little bit about the aftermath of MWP once the entire tournament is over. Hopefully I'll have a guest speaker for that as well, but we'll see. But yeah, that'll be it for announcements, and that'll be it for this video. So I will see you all next time. Take care.